It's time to take a ride on the Steelers Afternoon Drive with our co-hosts, Alan Saunders and Zachary Smith.
Welcome into another episode of Steelers Afternoon Drive. I'm Zachary Smith. That is Alan Saunders on his afternoon drive on this Thursday. How we doing, Alan?
I'm doing great. I am in Greenfield, Pennsylvania right now. McGee Field right there directly in front of me. I'm pointing at it. You can't see it, but I'm pointing at it. Greenfield, of course, the hometown of Dallas Cowboys head coach Mike McCarthy.
Oh, wow. Man, talk about topical.
So there you go.
There we go.
So there you go.
Maybe
right?
you should pull over and go interview some people right on the podcast about
There's
Mike
some
McCarthy
people right here at Rialto Pizza in Greenfield who are I don't know. I should ask them if they know Mike McCarthy.
They probably are big Mike McCarthy fans. Anyways, let's dive into this a little bit here. Alan, first things first. I feel like just throughout the week, we kind of just got to go through the injury report a little bit and talk about the way things might be trending. The DNPs today, Cam Hayward just resting. But other than that, Jaylen Warren, Cordarrelle Patterson still out. The same thing with Michael Pruitt. And then, of course, Alex Highsmith with the groin. We know he's not going to play. Even put out there, I believe it was Mark Caboli, the first one to put it out there, that the team is targeting in October 20th. So the next Sunday Night Football game that the team plays against the New York Jets is a potential return date there. But here we are on Thursday now. Still no Jaylen Warren or Cordarrelle Patterson part of the practice mix for the Steelers.
Yeah, I think you have to basically consider those guys pretty doubtful at this point. And Michael Pruitt, I would say almost no chance of him playing. Just because it's been 2 weeks and he hasn't practiced. So he's at a point where he's going to require some ramp up now. He was injured in Denver. Now even if he's healthy, he's not going to be one practice and go after missing 2 weeks. So I think you could probably figure Pruitt's out. Highsmith already ruled out, and I think pretty doubtful for Warren and Patterson. Looks like Najee Harris carry the most of the load, and then I assume Aaron Shampkin will be the other guy since he's the guy that got put on the roster. Although I think Jonathan Ward is a very good player and wouldn't hate to see him get a chance. So maybe there'll be two of them, honestly, because if both Patterson and Warren are out, I think they want to have three running backs.
Yeah, I would think so too. I was thinking, Ward could get a helmet even if one of them were out. If both of them are out, yeah, I think that you got to elevate him from the practice squad for this week. It wasn't funny, but when you said he was injured in Denver, for some reason, the first thing that jumped to my mind was they shot me in Denver. Obviously, that was not the case with Michael Pruitt, but Michael Pruitt working his way back after an injury that he suffered in Denver. Limited practice, Nick Herbig, Russell Wilson, of course, Larry Ogunjobi popping up here with a groin thing, groin late in the week. Anything that you think that this is something to monitor? Do you not like this?
I don't think that's a good thing. And it may be my fault also.
Why is that?
Because before practice, we were talking to the coordinators, and I asked Terrell Austin, hey, you've got Keanu Benton right around 45% through 4 games. I know he was banged up. I know there's been some injury or some matchup things, but is that where you want to be, or would you like him to eventually play more than that? And then Terrell would give a very professional answer and basically said we're pretty happy with him where he is. And then Larry Ogunjobi shows up on the injury report as limited today. And, of course, that would mean a whole lot more reps for Keanu Benton. So, sorry, Larry, it may be my fault.
That's kind of the same path I thought you were going to say. I thought you said that you were going to say that you asked TA how much of a difference a healthy Larry Ogunjobi makes, which would have been equally as ironic for him to then not practice today. But I don't know. I can't put the onus on you there, Alan, to be honest.
I literally once I was covering baseball, and I had a relief pitcher who I covered, who I wrote a story about 3 times in a row. I was having a great season. And I wrote 3 stories about him. And the day, all 3 of those stories, he had a terrible outing. And he literally was like, I'm never talking to you again. Just don't even come over here. I don't want you to write about me anymore. Every day you write about me, I'm bad. You're cursed.
I mean, honestly, fair. And the way that athletes are with how superstitious they are, like I 100% understand that as well. So, there we go. Russell Wilson, you wrote there's a story on the site about it that he did do some 11-on-11 period, right? Some team period stuff. Like the work has certainly been ramping up a bit, but still not a full participant in practice.
Yeah, if you go up one video here and you look at the sights and sounds from practice, you can see it's still the same thing we talked about yesterday. We got guys throwing today instead of handing off while running bootlegs, and Russ just standing still in the pocket. I can't take the idea of him playing seriously until I can see the man run. I don't care how much 11-on-11 you're doing. Like, Justin Fields has not been bad enough that they're going to rush Russell Wilson into play. And so I just don't, like, I'm not buying the idea that he has a chance to get into the lineup this week at all. I'm just not taking it.
Yeah, me either. What about Nick Herbig?
I could be wrong about that, but I think there's a chance that when Russell Wilson gets fully healthy, that Mike Tomlin could play him. I don't see that happening this week.
Yeah, we kind of mentioned that early in the week. Like it's probably a conversation, which is going to be a very interesting conversation to have the week of the Raiders following this. But Nick Herbig's the other one that was a limited participant here. How do you feel about him, his chances as we sit here?
I think pretty good. Maybe not 100%. Like he'll be able to play his full normal workload reps. Like, you know, and for him, like he's been asked to play more than his full normal workload anyway. So, I mean, I think you'll probably see more of DeMarvin Leal no matter what. I think Jeremiah Moon is trending towards being able to play. So, like, I think there'll be some more rotation for Nick Herbig this week than, say, there would be for Alex Highsmith on a normal week. But I do think he's going to at least be able to play and dress in this one.
There we go. Okay, and the other two, you just mentioned Jeremiah Moon, that was a full participant. Isaac Seumalo, another one. Keanu Benton, a full participant. Not really much to mention there. That's been status quo.
Yeah, those guys are good to go. They're all going to play and start.
Yeah. Alan, one thing that I wanted to bring up on here that wasn't necessarily, this season Steelers thing or this matchup Steelers thing. We briefly touched on the Hall of Fame stuff a couple weeks ago, but I thought it was worth bringing up again with LC Greenwood, Andy Russell, and also because we didn't talk about Jack Kemp like at all on that episode.
Yeah, I don't know. I must have missed him in the first announcement when there were more players, but now there are 3 Steelers players remaining after they cut down the list on the seniors committee of the Pro Football Hall of Fame. LC Greenwood is a Hall of Famer, man. I have a good feeling about it. I think this is the year for him. Okay. I just do. They changed the voting process here. It's a little bit more open. Like it's a bigger pool of people that are considering the seniors committee players. And I look at this list and I can't believe LC Greenwood's not in. There's no other, like, I don't think this is a weird part of this. So the way, I don't know if people aren't familiar with this. I think I talked about it on here before, but the way you are presented to the voters of the Hall of Fame panel is that a writer from your town sort of makes your case. Like they stand up and give an argument as to why this guy should be in the Hall of Fame. And I think I like that because these are the people that covered the people and they should know about why they were great and all that. But I think it makes it less likely for people to want to vote for 2 players from the same team at the same time, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's a little harder. And so I think the fact that I don't know. I mean, James Harrison, I think, is a Hall of Famer as well. But he wasn't even a finalist last time around. I don't know. I think this could be a year that LC gets in. And it's the fact that it's taken this long is a travesty. One of the best defensive linemen in Steelers history, or maybe the 3rd best. I mean, him or Cam Hayward, right? And so there's not really anybody else after Ernie Stauner. And by the way, can I take this discussion off the rails for a minute?
Yeah. I do want wait, hold on. Before you do, I do want to say that is something you mentioned about somebody that covered them. And the whole reason that got brought up was because we were talking about Antonio Brown's Hall of Fame case.
Okay. Yeah. Also, He is eligible, I think, right? Soon, anyway. He's not getting it.
Ooh, it's got to be coming.
He tweeted about it the other day. Or whoever runs his Twitter account. I don't know. I don't think all those tweets.
It's like some 19-year-old white kid he sold his account to. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I was in a discussion with someone the other day, a couple weeks ago maybe, on Twitter, about Cam Hayward, actually. And I called Cam Hayward a Steelers all-time great, which I believe he is. He is, I think, as I said, at worst, the fourth best defensive lineman in team history. If you were making the all-time Steelers defensive line, it is Ernie Stautner, Joe Green, Cam Hayward, and L.C. Greenwood, whatever order you want to put them. And Dwight White is the only other guy who could possibly be in that list. Okay. So I said that, and his response was, you can't be a Steelers all-time great if you haven't won a Super Bowl. And I'm like, do people think this? Because to me, this is absurd.
Yeah.
First of all, the team has been around since 1933. It didn't win a Super Bowl until 1973. So the first 40 years of its existence, are you just going to scratch all the – I mean –
Yep. Not a single great player.
Yeah. All right. But also, like, even in recent memory, Tremonti Dawson, Rod Woodson, are we calling these guys not all-time Steelers greats because they didn't win a Super Bowl? If Cam Hayward doesn't win a Super Bowl, are we not considering him?
Same team, TJ Watt. If he doesn't
TJ Watt, right? If TJ Watt doesn't win a Super Bowl, do we not yet consider TJ one of the team's all-time greats?
Yeah.
I do. I mean, I don't know. What are your thoughts about this?
I'm in full agreement. That seems absurd to me to look at that. Like, that's right. We've had that conversation about, like, for Hall of Fames and stuff like that, like how much does a Super Bowl impact making a Hall of Fame? But if you're talking about just calling an organizational great player, I don't think that has to be part of the discussion.
Yeah,
for me personally.
I'm not saying he needs to have 97 retired or anything. I mean, I think the standard for that here is pretty darn high. But speaking of which, like, they got to stop retiring numbers because they're out of them.
Yeah.
They now officially, I cannot ever remember the Steelers having duplicate numbers in season, but they now officially have duplicate numbers in season.
Oh, really?
Like one player on the active roster and one player in the practice squad. Both Aaron Shamplin and C.J. Henderson are 33.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Wow.
Oh, yeah. Let's use that as we can talk about Jack Kemp. Jack, do we know about Jack Kemp? We talked about Whizzer White, and I feel like that overtook the discussion. Whizzer White, Steelers running back, Supreme Court justice. Jack Kemp, much better football player. Also, though, kind of a crazy existence. He was a 17th round draft pick of the Detroit Lions. 17th round. That's when you know you're real good. Got cut by the Lions. The Steelers signed him. He played 4 games with the Steelers as a rookie. Washed out of the NFL. That was 1957. Never played another NFL game. 3 years later, in 1960, he gets signed by the Los Angeles Chargers of the American Football League, and then went on to be the best quarterback in AFL history. Was like a 7-time Pro Bowler, won multiple titles, was AFL Player of the Year. It was awesome for the Chargers and for the Buffalo Bills, all in the AFL. His last season was 1969, the year before the merger. So a great quarterback, and then went on to be a member of the House of Representatives from near Buffalo. Ran for president in 1988, lost the Republican nomination, ended up on the cabinet of George H.W. Bush, and then was the Republican nominee for vice president in 1996 with Bob Dole, losing to Bill Clinton. There are former Pittsburgh Steelers in all walks of life, but I think Jack Kemp was pretty singularly unique. I'm not sure that that matters in his Pro Football Hall of Fame resume, but it certainly is an interesting story that I think a lot of people that maybe aren't familiar with the history of the team are familiar with.
That is okay, yeah. And to answer your question, I had no clue who this was. So like I was like, let me get at least like some background info here. Type in Jack Kemp, and I was like, no, I don't need this politician. I need the one that played for the Steelers. And I was like, wait, this is the same guy. It's the same guy. So yeah, I had no clue. What an interesting life to live, and be able, like, the stories that this guy could probably tell also serving in the military. Like,
Yeah,
this guy just did everything.
I think just hilariously, like, also, like, he kind of, like, didn't really lead a super public, he died in 2009, didn't lead a super public life after losing that vice presidential race. Him and Bob Dole lost in '96. But, like, I was looking for a picture of him to put in the story, and one of the pictures that comes up is, like, him and Obama sitting in the White House. And I'm like, wait, just where is this very randomly? Like, I don't know. Like, it just seems like a very Forrest Gump style, like, person who was involved in a lot of important and seemingly unconnected stuff over the course of his life. I don't know if that makes him a Hall of Famer, but
that's what he's very good, probably not a Hall of Famer.
Very, very good football player, though. Like, I think compared to Whizzer White, a much more realistic case to make the Hall of Fame, considering, like, he was the best AFL quarterback. Like, he was the dude. I think that, and, like, he was with a revolutionary change, 3,000 yards. He had washed out of the NFL, hadn't played quarterback in 3 years. His first season, he threw for 3,000 yards with the Chargers. Like, they were doing things in the passing game in the AFL that the NFL was not doing then, that completely changed the way we play football. I mean, because of the innovation of those AFL teams, and I think Jack Kemp was a big part of that. If I was in the room, I would consider Jack Kemp, but L.C. Greenwood's the guy that's got to go. He has to be in the Hall of Fame. Has to.
Yeah.
Just has to.
Well, the thing with Kemp is, like, you would think, like, Bills, right? That's where he had his most success.
Yeah, Chargers and Bills, yeah.
Okay. Oh, with the Chargers as well? Okay.
Yeah,
I thought it was
first few years with the Chargers and then with the Bills.
Okay. Yeah, because I see, like, Bills Wall of Fame, Bills Silver Anniversary Team, whatever in the world that is.
Until Jim Kelly, he was the best quarterback in Bills history.
Okay. And what do we make of? We haven't talked about Andy Russell really at all on this, but
I mean, Andy Russell's a great Steeler. I'm just not sure he's a Hall of Famer. I mean, he won some Super Bowls and was an important leader on that defense. I'm a little surprised he made it as far, to be honest. I think Mike Wagner has a better case, just as a better player who did not make it. But, I think Andy Russell deserves some recognition. I'm not sure I would vote for Andy Russell. I would vote for L.C. Greenwood. I think I would vote for Jack Kemp as well. It's tied to the Steelers, fairly irrelevant. 4 games as a rookie in 1957.
Yeah, I mean, L.C. Greenwood's the one to me that has to get in. This does feel like the year, and hopefully they do make that happen. Let's shift our focus to, once again, talk about Davante Adams. Some news. It seems like there's, like, news that's not news being put out like every 10 or 15 minutes, but I feel like this does, especially because it pertains to the Steelers, this does help their case a little bit. So preferred destination, the Jets, but it came out that he's not necessarily going to, like, force his hand to any team like that. There's teams that he would be okay with being traded to. Pittsburgh would certainly fall into that. And the other part of this is he actually, like, this isn't just like a made up hamstring injury. Like, he's legitimately dealing with an injury that Diana Rossini says is going to hamper him for another week or two, which if that puts him past that week 6 matchup with the Steelers, that gets that roadblock out of the way as well.
Yeah, I mean, it certainly seems like he's not going to be healthy much before that Steelers game, even if it is before the Steelers game. And so I think that, like, that was the thing, right, where if he was, like, ready to go and wanting to play for a different team this week, I think the Steelers were kind of out, right? Like, they weren't going to trade him to the Steelers to let him come back to Vegas and beat the crap out of them in 2 weeks. Like, they just weren't going to do that, like, under any circumstances. And so the fact that he's not healthy means he's not going to go anywhere else either. And so that doesn't really become a detriment to the Steelers now. I think Omar should be texting a picture of Tom Telesco when the Steelers leave for Vegas, like, got the seat on the plane empty, just we'll bring him back with us. No, save you on the flight, it's all good. Just let him come home with us.
Yeah.
And then the thing about him not putting his finger on the scale, I mean, I don't really think he has that much say in this process. This isn't like Brandon Ayuk, where there's going to be, like, certainly teams might want to negotiate a new deal with him before the trade, but there's going to be teams that are just interested in him as a rental, and and they're going to cut him after this year, and they're fine with that. And so because of that, he doesn't really get a say. He doesn't have a no trade clause. And so what's he going to do? Like, refuse to play if he gets traded to the, I don't know, the Commanders? Like, whatever. Like, there's not, he doesn't really have any leverage there in the way that Ayuk did. So, like, yeah, I guess all he could have done was make a scene, which it is good for the Steelers that he's not. It doesn't really matter that he would prefer to be with the Jets. I think the Raiders are going to take the best deal. I'm not sure that the Steelers are going to be the best deal. I don't think Omar is going to overpay, and I don't think Adams is worth that much. I think a third-round pick is about what I feel like is fair. Well, we'll see what he ends up going for.
I was just say, do you think that because it does seem like there's this many teams involved and the Raiders can't just take the best deal, we've talked about a 3, but do you think that a 2 is out there then for them?
No, well, so there are some teams that might need some help with the salary cap for 2024. The Steelers are not one of them. The Steelers can make his salary fit. But, like, some teams may need the Raiders to absorb more of his 2024 salary. And so they may pay more to get that. I don't know if that's what if you're the Raiders, wouldn't you just as soon keep that cap space and roll it over? I don't know. I guess maybe they want the draft pick more. But yeah, so that's a thing where, like, I don't know what the Chiefs cap situation is, but I assume it's pretty bad, right? Like, they're probably pretty close to the cap. Like, if the Chiefs are going to make the trade, but they need a salary to be cut down from that $13 million it is right now, the Raiders can turn some of that into signing bonus. It would then stay with them. By the way, if you're ever confused about this, the rules about where salary goes when a player is traded, you cannot just look at a player's cap hit on another team and say, oh, that would be his cap hit with a different team. When a player is traded, any money that's already been paid to him, even if they haven't been accounted for cap-wise, that's got to stay with the team that paid it. So anybody that has prorated signing bonus, that always is going to stay with the team that paid it when he signed. And, some teams may need some help there. I still don't get, like, the sense that this is, like, a thing that is, like, I'm not getting a lot of confidence vibes from Steelers people about this. Not the way I did when we were talking about Brandon Ayuk. But, I mean, he's a good player. They should want him. They have the draft pick. They have the money. I don't know. We'll see how it goes.
I saw somebody, our boy, I'm using that term loosely, going back to the Ayuk thing. Pretty Ricky on Twitter made a return yesterday talking about the Jets, and he said that the Steelers' offer was a 4th-round pick. That's not the case. I want to just shoot that down.
Well,
right
I would like to just, like, what is the chokehold that this guy has people?
I don't know. I don't know.
Why does anybody give a rip what this guy says?
There had to have been some point where he hit on something. I don't know. Okay. He threw a bunch of darts, and one of them was a bullseye.
Yeah. The Steelers, by the way, can't even trade their 4th-round pick because it is still tied to Justin Fields. They could trade a 2025 4th-round pick. But
why even?
They can't trade. The 2026 4th-round pick, but they can't trade their 2025 4th-round pick because they've promised it to Chicago if Justin Fields plays 51% of the team's offensive snaps, and if you haven't been counting at home, he's played 100% of them. So
if your offer was going to be a 2026 4th, don't even get involved in the bidding. I mean, you're not part of the process if that's what your offer is. Right. I was talking to somebody yesterday.
Like, there's some gray area with those conditions. Like, the Steelers might be able to go to the Bears and be like, if we could get somebody else's 4th, would that be okay, or something like that? Like, if they absolutely needed to trade their 4th to the Raiders, there's some gray areas there. But man, I think he's going to get traded for a 3rd-round pick. I felt very good about that valuation since it's come out that the team is shopping him and he's asking to be traded.
I was texting somebody yesterday after I saw that post from that said dog, and I said, what do you think about this? And their response was they would give up a 3rd.
Yeah. They
which
should.
makes sense, and I agree with. Now, will that be enough to get it done? They're going to look at everybody. If everybody's offering a third, they're going to be calculative about it, and say which one do we think is going to be the worst team out of this group? Give us the best third.
And NFC versus AFC, because the Raiders still have a chance of making the playoffs. So if they can avoid helping the Steelers and the Jets, and obviously the Chiefs, I think they would like to do that. So if the Saints or the Commanders can come through with a decent offer here, I would think, and some people talk about the 49ers. I don't know if I buy that or not, but they are without, of course, Ricky Pearsall, who they thought they would have, but that feels like a lot of payment for them, considering their other wide receiver talent. But I think if the Commanders or the Saints could even make an almost as good deal, that would be preferable to the Raiders. I talked about the imagery of him beating the Raiders in what it is 9 days in Las Vegas, but it's not much better if the Steelers go out and win in Week 17 and eliminate the Raiders in the playoffs on a last-minute Davante Adams touchdown. Like, that's not giving them any warm and fuzzies either.
Do you think that there's something to not wanting to reunite him with Derek Carr, because if they light it up, it makes the organization look bad?
Maybe. I mean, I think it was pretty universally accepted that Derek Carr was pretty bad in Vegas.
Yeah. I don't know. That literally that's not a thought that I had, just occurred to me now.
An owner with a haircut like that is clearly not that worried about looking bad.
Oh, man. Mark Davis getting ripped on here. Also, I used the word calculative there. I was like, I don't even know if that's a word, but apparently it is. I just Googled it. It is a word. I meant to say calculated. But either way, that is also a word. All right, let's get to a question here from YouTube. Alan, if I told you that somebody had a question from YouTube and gave you 3 guesses, with this one, I guarantee this name would be one of the ones that you came up with. It's not Hayden Bishop. It's not our boy Thomas Brocious. It's Bird Sports Fan.
There you go. All right.
They comment about Najee Harris. Najee been talked about quite a bit lately. Your morning rush was kind of centered around Najee Harris in this run game as well. So he says, do you think Najee Harris has the opportunity to make himself part of this team's plans going forward? I know that we've kind of all written that off prior to, with them not picking up the 5th-year option, but now with Jaylen Warren out, and even to a lesser degree Cordarrelle Patterson not part of the plans right now, do you think Najee has the chance to make up that ground and prove to them that he is the guy going forward?
I mean, I assume they're not going to close doors, but I would think it would be more about, like, okay, what if Jaylen Warren tries to come back, he blows his knee out, and he's done for the year?
Mm-hmm.
Like, okay, maybe they would then be a little bit more hesitant to just turn things over to him in 2025, right? And so, like, maybe that happens. Maybe he's just not that good. Maybe he just comes back and is terrible. Like, I'm pretty skeptical of Najee Harris doing something that is going to change anyone's mind about who Najee Harris is. I just think we've seen it. We've seen who he is. He's a low efficiency, high durability, very tough physically running back who's a good pass protector, good pass catcher. You know what you're going to get. They decided that is not even worth the 5th-year option. I have a real hard time believing that they're going to decide he's worth anywhere near what somebody's going to pay him on the open market.
I fully agree. I'm glad you brought the 5th-year option thing, because I was going to say, had they picked up the 5th-year option prior to, and we kind of went into this year thinking, okay, they're just going to, run the tread off as much tread as they can in the 5th year here and then move on. But then this happened, what we're all talking about here, and he went out and had a great year in the 5th-year option, then maybe he could change their mind. But the fact they didn't even pick up the 5th-year option, to me, kind of wrote that story.
Right. Yeah, I mean, that's a very reasonable amount. Like, Najee's going to be walking to teams with that Ramondre Stevenson contract and be like, all right, pay up. I got the 5th-year option, doesn't even, like, it's dropping the bucket comparatively. Like, I just don't see.
Speaking of Ramondre Stevenson, 4 fumbles in four games this year already. Like, they talked about putting him on the bench for Antonio Gibson.
why you don't pay running backs, folks.
Yeah, so not great over there, but I do think this is an interesting question though, because it's not something I feel like a point of view that we've covered yet, kind of incorporating the injuries that the backfield has kind of endured so far early in the season. Like Najee clearly himself, I think, is dealing with something, but he's been able to go, unlike the other two are going to probably this week. So interesting stuff. Anything else to add, Alan?
Yeah, there was one comment yesterday that I just wanted to shout out
Mhm.
because I appreciated it, and now I can't remember the name of the user. We had a comment early in the show yesterday that was angry that I was calling Spencer Anderson Calvin Anderson, and of course I was referring to Calvin Anderson, who is not Spencer Anderson. The Steelers have two offensive linemen named Anderson. Calvin Anderson is a tackle who they signed as a free agent from the Patriots in the middle of this season. He's the one that had malaria last year. And Spencer Anderson, you all familiar with, is the team's 7th round 2023 draft pick out of Maryland. But one of our other audience members, before I even got to the comments to explain that, had been like, there's a Calvin Anderson too, Google is free, or something like that. I just wanted to show some appreciation for the self-policing audience. I really enjoy that.
Yeah, I think it was this X Concepts, right? That we replied and said, yeah. So yeah, shout out. You got to have those types of checks and balances. It's nice that we don't have to always be the ones going back and forth with the people in the comments. They can just do it themselves.
Yeah. I really appreciate that. Some ballage from X Concepts. He knows the 53rd man on the active roster is named Calvin Anderson.
Mm-hmm. And maybe the other person did too, and it just slipped their mind. But either way, don't come at us without fully knowing. That's the point here. All right, Al, before we get out of here, tell people they can find you.
At @Saunders_PGH, PGH Steelers Now, SteelersNow.com. I will be updating the Southside Scoop tonight. It went up last night, very late.
Mm-hmm.
I'll see if I can get it up a little earlier. But more stuff, more tidbits getting packed in there as the week goes on. But I'll tell you what, the lead story about Cameron Johnston is worth the $4 a month.
Aussie.
Fun story there. And go check it out. SteelersNow.com. Use promo code Allen10 and get $10 off an annual subscription. And subscribe, hit that bell for notifications here on YouTube so you don't miss an episode of Steelers Afternoon Drive, Sights and Sounds, Steelers interviews from the locker room, post game, and of course Steelers Afternoon Drive.
There you go. Also, if you are on YouTube, hit us with a comment. We just mentioned that we love the people in the comments. The checks and balances that we get from the audience.
We do like the comment section here.
Leave us a question for a future episode, but of course, just your thoughts on anything that we talked about today. We will definitely continue to get to those. If you're listening somewhere else, Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcast from, be sure to leave us a 5-star review and subscribe over there. Just search Steelers Afternoon Drive. The same way you can find us on TikTok, Steelers Afternoon Drive, and then you can find me everywhere, Zachary Smith, PGH, for Alan Saunders and myself. Thanks for jumping in and taking another ride on the Steelers Afternoon Drive.